We have Alex in Roxville, Maryland. You're on with Matt and Darrel. How are you?
Hey, Matt, Darrel, good talking to you. Yes, I call myself a meta-theist because I know that whenever the word meta does something, it sounds deeper than it is.
Yes, it sure does. It's the deepity.
Yes, exactly. Anyway, I was a comparative religion major at Oberlin, and I studied various religions and so forth. And I believe I've come up with a commonality that unites most religions and possibly also most ideologies. Basically, when you strip away the... What?
I do too.
You what?
I have... So you have a model that you think unites most religions and ideologies. I do too. So
okay.
you present yours and I'll present mine, and we'll talk about how we could tell which one of them is more likely correct.
Okay, very good. Basically, my idea is that when you strip away the cultural and historical bells and whistles from the various religions, you're left with what I call all will be well, the sort of a state of being in which all is well. It isn't a personality. It's more of a state of being like nirvana or satori or the Gnostic pleroma is a state of being, sort of a divine state of being. And basically, my view is that most people, the vast majority of people, want this want all to be well. They have sort of a hope for it and a desire for it, and they have a faith for it, although I put an asterisk on the word faith. I don't mean faith in the way that you usually use it to mean belief in something without evidence, but more the idea of a faithfulness to something. For instance, you could say that you have a faith in world peace, that there will be world peace when you don't have any evidence for it, or you could say that you're faithful to the ideal of world peace, which means that you not only you'll believe it will happen, but you will sort of work for it as well. It's sort of more
the word for that would be devoted.
What?
The word for that would be devoted.
Well, if you look at the word faith or fidelity, you do have this idea of faithfulness as well. I mean, you can use it.
Fidelity, devotion, they're synonyms. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I realize that you use the term faith to mean belief in something without evidence. My usage of it is different. My usage of it is the idea of faithfulness to an ideal in which you're actually participating in making that ideal happen and, in effect, providing your own evidence or providing evidence with the rest of the group that you're working to advance whatever form of all will be well is for you.
Okay. So this is not going to, you're not going to be happy.
Okay. What's yours?
So what is the response to that? See, first of all, I don't know why on earth you would start by removing cultural and societal factors, because my thing is that the one common thing that religions and ideology share is human beings living in a world and trying to come up with answers to things and explanations with things surrounded by their fears and their cultural and societal influences. And so it seems far more plausible that people make this stuff up, which seems to be kind of what you're saying, except you think they make it up because they want everything to be well. Well, I don't care what their motivation is. I care whether or not it's actually true.
Well, it's true in the sense that it's based on consciousness in the same way that Sam Harris talks about consciousness.
No.
The idea that you want there to be, may I finish?
No.
The idea that you want there, I can't finish. Huh?
When you say it's true in the sense, think about what you're saying. I'm asking whether or not the claims of religion are in fact true, and you're saying, well, it's true in the sense that it ties to consciousness. That's a load of shit. It's not true. That's like saying do unicorns actually exist? Well, they exist in the sense that people will draw pictures of them and have warm, fuzzy feelings about them, or make a stuffed unicorn that they can set on their bedpost. That's not the same thing. So you're giving an explanation for something, which may well be fine. You could be correct that people want things to be okay, but you might as well have just said, hey, religion is wishful thinking.
Exactly.
Okay, I have a response to that, which is that to say it is wishful thinking in a sense, but to say that it's wishful thinking is to compare tic-tac-toe to chess. It's more of I would say that to say that it's wishful thinking is dismissive in the sense that it's more what I would call a longing which people have for as long as they can sustain that longing.
It should be dismissed. That's what you should do with wishful thinking. If we're gonna engage in reality and try to make a better world, wish in one hand.
Hello?
Yeah, I didn't want to finish the actual thing, but it's like wish in one hand and shit in the other. Wishing is about our desire. It's not about what is. And if you really wish for a better world, then the path to that is one that actually encourages people to work towards a better world. Something like secular humanism, something where we're talking about how do we do things when it seems that we are stuck here trying to solve this. If you want to just... what is the point of saying that, well, there's a commonality in all religions, which is kind of a wishful thinking because people long for a better world? I'm back to my original response, which I'll amend to so fucking what? What does that tell us?
Well, what it tells us, when I mentioned consciousness, I meant that the idea is that we're trying for a world in which there's as little suffering as possible, to minimize suffering, to maximize whatever the goods and so forth. And basically, if you take, for instance, the beginning of Judaism, whatever it was, 3,000-4,000 years ago, basically you had all will be well personified as a patriarchal, warlike God, because that's what satisfied people at the time, and that's what satisfied, they weren't called Jews, they called Hebrews at the time, whatever. But basically it was an adaptive meme for them, so it worked. Whereas I'm basically saying that to call it wishful thinking is dismissive because it's something that I would say most people have, that we sustain as long as we can. Even suicides may think that they're improving their situation by committing suicide. So it's basically something which is a part of us, which wants all to be well, which wants to minimize suffering, and to sort of exclude us from the process, to say that there's a God which is separate from all of that, to say that we can't be active in the process. It's sort of like what Dietrich Bonhoeffer writes in his book about the price of, about cheap grace, this idea that you can just have faith without evidence or hope for something and not participate in it yourself. The evidence for the faith in all that will be well is provided by the people who adhere to it themselves, for whatever version of all will be well is, whether it's world peace or ending hunger or whatever.
Do you believe there's a God?
I believe there's a divine state called all will be well, and that
oh my God.
as long as there's
oh my God,
which can sustain it.
Okay, congratulations on your metatheism. I'm sorry you're afraid to identify as an atheist.
That's kind of what it sounded like. We're one step away, but we don't want to get there.
I'm terrified. All these people, these billions upon billions of people who are advocating for gods that tie to the God of classical theism in some sense, or some other version of God, who believe there's an actual thinking agent entity that cares about, who you're having sex with, or, how many times a day you pray, or how clothed you are or not clothed you are. And you're gonna sit here and say, well, you know what? I don't actually believe in any of that, but there's something about the human condition, and it's just this wishing for things that all will be well. So I'm going to call that God. Fuck off. This is what religion does to the world. Religions permeate societies, the society and the culture that you want to toss out. I'm not even saying you're wrong. You're not even wrong. You haven't put forward anything that could even be viewed as being wrong. Religions permeate societies and cultures. Yes, they're all about us. They're about what our desires are and everything else. But at the end of the day, we're talking about whether or not the tenets of religion are in fact true, and whether or not there's a God tied to these things at the end of it. And so if you say, I'm a theist, you are someone who is convinced that there's a God. And if you say, I'm an atheist, you are someone who is not convinced that there's a God. But you've decided, I'm not good with that direct logical negation. I'm going to call myself a metatheist because I'm going to redefine God to be that desire for all to be well. Well, congratulations. I hope you enjoy that. I'm sure it brings you a sense of superiority, but we're here to talk about real things.
I want to suggest something to that particular caller and callers who might be the similar ilk. You're close, but not quite there. And here's what I mean. you're spending a lot of energy on something that's not going to get you very far when you could be taking that energy and actually helping somebody. You could go down to the homeless shelter and take all that theist energy that you want to put on dark energy or whatever you want to do, mathematics, all these other colors, and you could actually help feed somebody. Or you could volunteer for recovery from religion and actually help somebody deal with the trauma they were given as a Jehovah's Witness. There's lots of things you could be doing to create meaning and forget that there even is a God. There's no need for the God if there's people out there that need fed.
Yeah. There needs to be a special section of the Recovering from Religion hotline for metatheists. So that when you call in to say, well, I'm a metatheist, and I think that I'm going to call God that desire that humans have for all to be well, somebody on the hotline who has slightly more patience than I do can say, why on earth should we call that God? How are you any different than the person who calls in and says, well, I think the universe is God, or the universal consciousness, the shared consciousness is God, or this can of Coke Zero is God, or sex is God. You know what? I'd rather just call in and say Eric Clapton is God, because at least that's closer to being true.